know about it, then you will. If they've got to assume the balance and then you have to put the balance and notice on it, and then it's certain periods of time,
Okay, everybody. Thanks for attending this meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Task Group, Select Move, Thursday the 8th of September. My name is Councillor June Molyneux, Chair of the Committee, Councillor Sarah Ainsworth, Vice Chair. Members in the chamber, when you want to speak, please raise your hand to indicate to me that you wish to speak. When invited to speak, please turn your microphone on and switch it off when you've finished. There isn't anybody joining via Teams, is there? There is not. So that's okay, we don't need to bother about that. Technology fails, I'll adjourn the meeting to try and resolve the issue. If it's not possible, a new date and time will be set. Can everybody ensure the phones are turned to silent? We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms go off, it's real. And with that, any apologies? No?
No apologies, Chair.
Okay. Item 1, minutes of the 17th of August meeting, pages 3 to 6. Are there any issues on the accuracy of the minutes? So everybody's happy with those? Okay, the minutes are approved. And the 18th of August, are those okay as well? Yeah? Right, so we're all right with that. Those are all approved. Draft final report. I don't think this section will be quite as easy. I'll get through it. And I invite members to make any comments on the report. So I've got a few, as you'll see. By the pink pen. Who wants to kick off? What I think we'll do, if we start with the summary recommendations and go through those, and then any other bits of the report that people deem necessary. The first one was about member learning. I've crossed out A and put member learning in relation to Select Move, because there may be other things we need to discuss in that, I don't know. That's on page 4. I'm starting on page 4 on that one. And to keep us updated on any substantial changes, I think that is important. Yes, Sarah?
I've just got one thing I just want to, I think, maybe beneficial to add to that. I think we need to have an annual member learning session.
I think that would be a very good idea.
To keep members updated. I think that would be very important.
No, we could add policy changes, as well as, because substantial changes, but
Yeah.
instead the word policy changes as well, because things will...
Any policy changes would have to always come to Cabinet. So, yeah.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah. It is good to keep members updated because...
Yeah, it'll go to Cabinet.
Yeah.
We can do a learning session as well.
So that's firming that one up. Anybody else, anyone on that one? The second one, efforts. I don't like the phrase efforts to be made to encourage, because I think they should be doing more than efforts. So I keep crossing efforts out and encourage, because they're not free and we're not patting them on the head saying, well done, isn't that nice, type of thing.
I think,
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's...
Yes. I think we need to look at the wording of that in the context of we don't have the power to change it as an individual authority, but we can work with the partnership. So we can work around the wording, but we can't say it will be changed.
No, I'm not saying it will be, but we said we're not. I don't want them to make efforts. I want them to kind of more like to do it more than that. And that's my feeling on it. I'm sorry, I don't know what other members think.
Can I just ask what wording you would use that we could consider that would still manage expectations?
I would just start with simplify the banding system. I wouldn't bother with the efforts to be made to, because that's what we need to do, is simplify that banding system. That's what they need to, and that's what that's what came through when we spoke to whoever he was. His name escapes me. You know, we discussed that there, and he was in agreement. So that.
To be honest, obviously the changes haven't come through yet, not been agreed by steering group. but there's no contention over that already.
Yeah.
There is likely we are going to go to either 3 or 4 bands, and that's in.
So then we don't need the encouraged in that if it's going to happen.
Right.
Kim?
I don't know if it's too soft a wording, but I was just going to suggest we recommend the simplification of the banding system. And then on the second sentence, rather than the partnership is to be encouraged, I've just put that, and we will work to influence the partnership to reduce the number of bands. So that's clear that that's Chorley Council's view.
Yeah.
But it depends what other people think,
I agree with you, Kim.
Yeah. James?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. In a similar vein, just changing that wording to sort of strongly recommending moving to a simplified banding system, ideally a 3-tiered banding system, as that meeting observed that, this is what's happening in neighbouring authorities, why can't it happen in this partnership? And if, as Rachel said, if that's something that's already been considered, well, why can't we say that it needs to be enforced quickly? Thanks.
And is everybody happy with it on that? Okay, Matthew. It's the same on the third one. Encourage the select moves to remain with an open housing register. Recommend that they do that. It's because it's something that we are doing. That's what we see as appropriate rather than encourage.
I think we can treat it exactly the same as point 2. Again, these are things I've already raised at steering group, and these are things that, although the draft policy would have people with no housing needs on, that again, there'd be contention anyway within the partnership. Housing associations themselves don't necessarily see it as a positive to have a closed register. So that would be the only difference where you bring in a 4th band, potentially, is where the 4th band is for people with no housing need, but they can actively bid. Yeah.
Okay. And on 4, there's a grammatical mistake. 3 reasonable offers within. I find those, I'll warn you now. 30 odd years teaching does it to you.
So everywhere we say it says it encourage, we'll put recommend.
Possibly, yeah. I think that sounds better from my point of view, from us as a group wanting to influence things. Anybody? Anything on 4 is the same with and it's the same with the tightening of the criteria. That we recommend that the criteria is tightened. That local connection, because that was quite key with a lot of things that we were saying, both us at the MP and resident. Kim?
On I think the 5 on number 5, the tightening of the criteria, I just wondered whether or not, rather than frequently, maybe quarterly or annually or whatever's realistic to, because frequently could be.
Yeah, I think it's something that we
couldn't
did already discuss previously, but we'd put it in the member learning session, and if that's going to be an annual event, I mean, it can be a standard annual event and it can still be done ad hoc as necessary. So yeah, that's fine. It's something that Lisa's already doing in the Select Move coordinator role to pull those on a regular basis. And just in relation to, again, in relation to all of those points, a lot of those things are already in process within the review at the moment. And part of the work that I did, I think it's further on in the report, but looking at those neighbouring boroughs as we were asked to in terms of what their local connection criteria are. And what we actually found was that they are similar to us, if not more generous than us, rather than tighter. The only difference so Bolton and Blackburn both had similar, if not more generous, local connection criteria. Wigan was slightly different, but their whole allocation system is different. They work on a points-based system, but in terms of local connection, it was a little bit stronger for them.
Well, it was a thought from people that Jigsaw is Greater Manchester based, and that's could be why we're getting that migration from there. I don't know. It was a thought that came through. Okay. Anybody? Any others that you want to go? 5. We've done 5, 6. James.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just some clarification. So it's saying, recommending in this case the partnership to decrease the threshold of individual savings. Does that mean individuals will be expected to have even less money in terms of savings before they move down in scale priority?
I think this was something I wanted to raise myself because I think the wording is confusing. Obviously, the current policy is £60,000 annual income, and that can be for a couple, doesn't take into account for dependent children and £30,000 of savings or investments. So the way I read the recommendation was that we wanted to increase the annual income allowance, especially with the cost of living crisis. People could be earning £60,000 between them and still struggling, and decrease the threshold on savings from 30,000 to lower. Is that how it was perceived? So that would be beneficial to applicants if they could still earn more and be on the register and have less savings and be on the register.
Yeah.
James.
Thanks, Chair. I think we said previously that, I think it was yourself, Kim, who said we shouldn't be using the amount of money that people have in savings to, disqualify people, because having money in savings is not the same as having a housing need. People can have quite a bit of money but be struggling to get a property that's suitable for them. So I know my personal view would not be to decrease. It's certainly, if anything, increase the threshold in that case. But I certainly agree with you that we'd be looking to increase that the earnings side of it, and potentially either leaving the savings bit or even increasing that, because I don't think that's a reasonable indicator of the housing need that people have on Select Move.
Yeah, I think, again, it's already been raised within the partnership, so it's still up for discussion. And I don't think the partners, in terms of the landlords, would have any issue with that, because they want those mixed tenures, they want the sustainable communities. There are other ways that they can bring that in, or that they can do the mix in terms of the quotas or the removal of the quotas. And I don't think that will be contentious with them. What I would say is that in the current policy and in the proposed new policy, there would always be exceptions, same as there's exceptions to home ownership. Normally it's a disqualification from the register, but it will always be taken on case-by-case basis. If only social housing can meet someone's need, they would be allowed, there would be an exemption for them. But in general, it would still be the allocation of resource to people who need it more than those who could potentially go to the open market.
Okay, Kim?
Sorry, I've not got it straight in my head. So I get what you're saying about that there is exemptions, but I know the cases that I've dealt with over the last few years, it's been a really, if they hadn't have had somebody pushing it, they wouldn't have got that exemption. So, but what you say, so you're saying about, so people's income, the threshold for income would go up in the policy, but then, possibly, yeah. But then, to me, my problem when I came to this task group was about, from feedback from our ward, was about if somebody's got about the £30,000 and the fact that it shouldn't matter whether it should be irrelevant how much they've got in the bank. So to me, I would think that actually that should be removed. Should it not? Because you could be having a job, you could be working in a minimum wage job or a very high-powered, job at the other end of the scale. Yeah, to me, I think, I don't know, I'm not explaining it very well, but to me, I think what you've got in the bank should be irrelevant. It should be, if you're working and then you can they see that you can afford to pay the rents and stuff, and looking at your income and and the security of your employment, not how much you've got in the bank. So to me, I would say, can we not? I mean, I know you're going to say it's not within our get, but can we not recommend or request that it's removed entirely?
We can certainly recommend it. I think from the local authority point of view, for us and for South Ribble and for Preston, they would probably have that same view as us. That's potentially in opposition to the housing associations, is that we fundamentally know that there's not enough housing stock, so we have to try and ration that for the people in most need who couldn't access the open market. So if somebody did have £30,000, if I had £30,000 in savings and became homeless, I would be expected, and I think I would find it reasonable that I could go to the open market and rent privately. Might not be able to sustain that, and it might then affect my savings. They may deplete. But it's having a cut-off point at somewhere on the register, especially while we've already got an open register. But it's certainly something that we can still keep as an option on the table with the partnership.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's not up to me, but to me, I mean, I'm happy with increasing the employment point, but to me, I would want to see and I know it's like pie in the sky, but to see what you've got in your bank removed, to be honest, because I mean, I know you probably say it's not going to be practical and stuff, but from the cases we've had over the last few years, I think...
that shouldn't be the defining thing, which
when
sometimes
people start off,
I agree with that, actually. It's trying to understand what you're saying. It doesn't reflect the regular activity, does it?
Okay. Let me put something out. Where are we up to now? I've just done that. Exercise consistency in the application process in relation to valid documentation, definitely. I would have thought that was vital, really. I've got quite a few grammatical errors in this next bit.
Sorry, can I just go back to that?
Yeah, go on. Yeah, you can.
I realised that I drafted the policy alongside Matthew, but I would actually go further on that one and say, because I know it's something that we would be able to deliver with the capacity that we're adding into the team. So when it comes to the consistency, we could maybe even reword that to say, I don't know, have oversight of the consistency in the policy or the application of the policy. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions about it, but I think we can there definitely do more than encourage because it's within our gift.
We really want to ensure, don't we? But we can't.
I'd like to say that, but
Well, we can. Why not? Because, well, to me, something like that, it should be consistent across the park, though. Yeah, okay with that. Right. I'll do my grammatical bits first for the 8. Ensure face-to-face access remains, not make remained, to all users alongside technical people here. If required, users, I'd lose are. I don't like surplus words either. Users to be signposted to services such as we don't need available. Housing advisors, I think, should be encouraged rather than are. Should be encouraged to operate a drop-in hub to assist the digitally excluded, and I think that's important. In fact, I think that might need to be one on its own, a recommendation about those people. Sarah, and you, Sarah, got that one, Mark. So.
Thanks, Chair. It's just one bit of the wording that I want to change. I think we put ensure that face-to-face continues to remain available because there are more cases now where Zoom and Teams are more prolific, and I think it's just important we keep a face-to-face service more than anything.
Yeah, I think we could split that into 2 recommendations because the face-to-face stuff is vital. Not everybody has the access. And some people want to talk about it rather than do it online. They want that discussion, I think. I don't know. James?
Yeah, thanks. I was just looking at like this drop-in hub point. It was actually a recommendation of the 2014 report. So the fact is these drop-in hubs haven't taken place. So we need, therefore, a stronger recommendation because some could perceive that this is actually a weaker recommendation. We're reneging on the commitments we made in 2014. I'd like you say, Chair, I'd move that into a separate recommendation and say housing providers are to be strongly encouraged to operate the drop-in hub system to assist the digitally excluded, but also to improve the transparency of the service, because that seems to be an issue we've had throughout, that people don't understand where they're at in the process. They're up against a monolithic system, and that actually a bit of accountability and a bit of transparency and a bit of frequent contact is what's missing. So I think that's something that a recommendation about drop-in hubs could satisfy.
Okay, yeah. And you she was ready to say.
Yeah. I will just have to double check because I know that I did some updates on those, the 2014 recommendations. We know that some drop-in hubs did happen, especially in rural areas, and they tailed off mostly because of COVID. And then there have been changes, obviously, within the partnership and staffing capacity within Chorley Council. So it wasn't that they were never delivered at all, I don't think, but I can double check on that.
Yeah, they were delivered, and I think Jigsaw are doing some drop-ins now, I think. No, not Jigsaw, I think it's Accent. And places for people as well, I think. So I think they're starting up again.
Yeah, Kim?
I just wonder, citizens' advice, do they actually have like a digital, I mean, I know, will they sit down and talk people through
Yeah,
bidding and
they've got a specialist unit called, oh, I've forgotten what it's called. Oh, I will remember it. Where they have officers that will go out to people's homes and do the processing of applications with them. And I've forgotten what it's called, but Chorley Council did pay for them to increase the service, so they don't just come into CAB, they can actually go out to people.
Yeah, because we as authority used to do that at one time, didn't we?
Yeah, so CAB do that as well, but I totally forgot what it's called.
oh no, that's
Supporting people or something like that.
Yeah. And when it comes to Chorley Help the Homeless, which we might want to just add in because it just says Help the Homeless, but Chorley Help the Homeless, we provide funds into them as well, and part of the agreement around that funding is specifically around assistance with Select Move, which also gives people that face-to-face as well. Not everything, it's low-level inquiries, applications, bidding, those types of things, and a lot of that may then still filter through to my team, but it is within both of those commission services.
The other one was, there's no mention of the libraries. Now I don't know, and I probably should know it's a county councillor, but do they, I'm not sure if the one-on-one support to people is only available at Chorley Library. You know, as in to sort of sit with somebody and say, this is to talk them through how to do it.
I'd love to be able to recall this off the top of my head, and I can't. But I know it was something that Lisa looked at, obviously in the scope of her role in terms of digital inclusion and digital access, because she'd checked out what the offer from the library was. And I think it was. I don't want to say something that's not true. I'd have to go back and check it. But yeah, I think at the time she only checked if it was Chorley Library.
But I think there was possibly some reference to the libraries, because...
But it includes a lot of the rural areas. Excuse me, the rural areas. And in Adlington, it saves that.
Yeah, I know. I had a meeting with County Council this week on, the cost of living area of work that they're looking at. And one of the things that they've talked about in the cost of living area of work is retraining all the library staff to support people. You know, they're doing the warm spaces initiative, so part of that warm spaces will be to retrain, and I did mention homelessness, so they are going to be looking into that a bit more. So
perhaps we could say explore and have another one to explore the use of other buildings, e.g. libraries for this. If it's once a week, people get to know that on a Thursday I can go to Adlington Library and there's Coppell Library and the Clayton. So there's, and they're the areas that have quite a lot of people who are using Select Move.
I think the county council moved, like with the cuts and stuff, I think they moved to a thing more of having volunteers supporting people at one time, didn't they? 'Cause I know at Adlington Library they had a big push for digital champions, and so rather than a member of staff it would be but I don't know what the you don't want to signpost somebody.
Yeah. I didn't want to say
But we could put it in as a recommendation that it's looked at. It's going to help our residents. Okay. So if that's 8 done. Ensure that the upgraded system provided by Civic allows the move to be functional, especially on mobiles, because we said there was a lot of difficulty with people using, and most people are accessing using mobiles, and yet there were issues. So that really does need
again, it's something it's already in hand. The upgrade is commissioned, the upgrade is happening, it should be happening next month. And we've seen not the demo site, but we've seen a lot of stuff from Civica in terms of what the upgrade will entail and what the benefits are, which that was one of the big part, is that it will mirror now what you see on laptops and desktops, is my understanding.
Yeah, good. Because yeah, Kim?
I was gonna. I mean, it might be irrelevant from what you've just said, but I'm sure I've read somewhere in the papers from the background papers that it was supposed to happen this time last year or something. This upgrade and everything. I just wonder whether or not we should add something about monitoring the. I mean, it might be irrelevant because if it happens in the next few weeks, but about monitoring the progress of the upgraded system, or the monitoring the progress of the rollout of the upgraded system, as well as ensuring that the upgraded system, but I don't know, add something about monitoring the progress of the rollout.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and monitor it, right, yeah.
Just to say, I mean, in terms of it was an impact of COVID as well, but the reason that we upgraded with Civica was because we had no choice. It was an IT-based decision because they were leaving Internet Explorer. I won't go into it. But had we had the opportunity to, it would have usually, the cost of the software to the partnership usually would have meant a procurement exercise. And so that would probably be the next phase. It wouldn't necessarily be, it would be monitoring what's delivered by Civica this time, and also in the not too distant future, looking at a procurement exercise across the partnership to see if there is any other IT that would do the job better for us and for customers. So that would be, I don't necessarily think we want to put that in as a recommendation, but just for information, it might not be that we stay with Civica forever. It was a needs must in terms of the upgrades and to get it functioning the way it should be, but we may still be able to find better in the future.
Okay. I've just got a question mark next to 10 because it didn't really mean a lot to me when I read it. Enable access to information easier for users of Select Move to manage their expectations. I mean, I know what it's trying to say, but it doesn't. For example, listing the average waiting time for different sized properties and by geographical location.
Again,
It's to do with transparency, as
it
we
is,
said
and it's
before, and it
information
needs to say that rather
yeah,
than
what we intend to say is information that's easily available. So again, within the upgrade, again, I won't bore you with the details. It's stuff called hex maps, where people will be able to go on and see a map of the area and see roughly how long does it take to wait for a 3-bedroom property in this ward even.
So it's fine, it's providing that information, isn't it? That's what really... So
it's
that's
trying to manage
that's what we need to say
expectations
in
of
that
what
one,
the
yeah.
system can deliver, yeah.
Yeah, but it was just, it didn't read well to me. Sorry, Matthew. Number 11, it should say are not were. It's my tenses again. It's the teacher coming in. Ensure the expectations of users are set accordingly, clearly, and provide open communication. I think it should say clear as well. Because that's half the time the communication isn't clear.
Do you think that 10 and 11 need to be amalgamated then?
No, because I think the access to the information needs to be used, to be easy. And that's a different one about average waiting times and things like that. But the expectations is more than that, isn't it, really? And so I would prefer them to be kept separate, just worded slightly differently. Okay. If everybody else is happy with that. Any more? Anybody else? 12, about the makeup of those in demographics, and the 25% allowance is in 12. Anything about that? No? Definitely a further Select Move task group or scrutiny investigation to be conducted following the same frame to see if the recommendations were adhered to and progress has been made, positive progress, because I don't think from the last report necessarily that's true. Because I've highlighted some, I don't know about other people, but I was going with my pink pen. The recommendations from the last one, we're doing the same thing again now. We're doing the same ones. So they obviously weren't. The surgeries, the drop-in sessions, especially in the rural areas, and how they promoted. That was the last time. Provide details in the property adverts, and we've not got anything on that. And that came out in the survey, that some of the details was the property adapted? Did it have special adaptations? And they said quite a few of the people in the survey said that information wasn't there. So, I mean, I would add to the list that accurate property details should be provided, you know, as accurate as they can, including information about adaptations, because they were finding that those things weren't included.
I think obviously without delving into each individual case where that's happened, what I think that could be is that there's a different way to show it on the adverts. If people, so usually on an advert there's a little symbol if there's adaptation. So if people don't necessarily understand that and need it and usually it is written as well that there's adaptations. It's not often, if ever, that I've seen an advert that doesn't contain the information if it is adapted.
But if you don't know the key,
yeah, so that's what I mean.
so it needs something it needs to be clearer.
Yeah, that's what I mean in terms of helping people
Yeah.
understand the advert,
Yeah,
rather
definitely.
than there being a lack of
But
detail in the advert.
they should be there, and they should be clear to somebody who's reading it. So if we could put a recommendation for that, I think that we need to. It acts as a reminder to the landlords as well that you need to make these things clear. And I'm these are my additions. Going through the survey that we did with the residents, it worried me that 54% of the people, more than half the people, were not satisfied with Select Move. They should be looking at those figures. They should be trying to improve those satisfaction figures. They're never going to get everybody satisfied, but over half of the people not satisfied with the system tells me something about that system. And they should be worried about that, and they should be looking at that and trying to get that down, I think.
No, I agree, and I think from a strategic point of view for running the service, it's an operation that should be repeated, not just because of scrutiny, and it needs to be done. Well, it is being done on the homeless side as well. So we always need to find new ways to engage customers with service.
But from 54%, it definitely needs, to me, looking at. They definitely need to look and improve that figure.
Yeah, maybe we can look at a recommendation for annual satisfaction surveys and then following up with action plans.
Yeah.
To address the issues
I
identified.
think that would be a good recommendation. Are you in agreement? Yeah. You got that one, Matthew? He's tapping away furiously here, this one. Does anybody else have anything to... James?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. If we could move back a bit, back to recommendation 10. I mean,
Of course you can.
enabling, to quickly change that wording, because I agree it's a bit, it's a bit confusing. Enabling easier access to information for users, but also, last time, I know we're going right back to the start of this task group, looking at how many properties are listed with photographs. When I was looking at the website recently, it's a general rule that the majority do not have a photograph on it now. Now, if I was on the open market, looking at properties, I would not be putting in a proposal to rent a property that didn't have a clue what it looked like. Granted, people can go and have a look, can go and investigate themselves, but it won't show the interiors of the property. And in this case, we're dealing with people who have a variety of disabilities. These are the people who least have the capacity to go and investigate properties off their own back. And certainly in a system where we expect users to bid for properties, where they're committing to one particular property at a time, I think we really do need to be strongly recommending that the providers put these pictures up there on a routine basis, because, as I say, sometimes like at the start of the task group, about 50 or 60% were showing the pictures. I'd say it's about a third at the moment, so it obviously fluctuates from time to time. But there's properties that have been on there, and I'd say they've been on there since sort of 2018 or years and years and years, and there's still no pictures on there. So I think that's part of the reason why we've got so many problems within the system, that people can't bid for a property, that they don't know quite what it entails, and it's about that information, it's about that transparency. So I think we really do need to be strongly recommending that pictures are provided routinely.
And
Thanks.
That was a recommendation in the last report. Registered providers within the partnership are encouraged to provide more details on their property habits, including details of any specific local connection provisions and the provision of photographs on the majority of adverts. So that's from last time. So obviously that's not improved. And it was a concern then.
I think it will remain a concern in terms of, again, it's already mentioned in terms of making sure the adverts are as up to date as possible in terms of detail, local connection, that should always be on there. I've not come across any myself that haven't had any details where there is a specific local connection and it's not been mentioned on the advert. We will still have the same issues in terms of we're never going to be able to get all of the pictures on, but we can certainly raise it with the landlords. We're not going to be able to say ensure that all or even put a percentage on it, but we can raise it and we can continue to keep it at, as a standard item on the operational meeting for the partnership.
I've turned over and found something else that I'd highlighted. But the partnership recognised, this is one of the last recommendations in the last report. Partnership recognised the importance of treating social housing customers with dignity and respect, that the customer service standards are of the utmost priority. And from what our MP was saying when we spoke to him, that doesn't always happen. And from some, anecdotal things that have been said to us in the village, that doesn't always happen. And I think it's a good reminder to them to actually have that there. That just because it's a social house they're looking for,
Yeah, I totally accept that. Again, I hear my staff on the phone to customers, and if I ever thought that was the case and that was happening, and I would think the same of managers of the RP partners. When I speak to RP partners or any members of staff, it's actually quite the opposite, and people are a lot more socially minded. I think the difficulty is that when people are dissatisfied with not being able to access something from us, then you will hear a very different side of that. I'm not saying it's untrue. What I'm saying is I haven't seen the evidence to say that the staff are speaking to people.
But as I say, it's good to be there as a reminder to people, if you know what I mean. Okay, but I think we should be treating those people.
I've booked in a meeting with Councillor Murray because I know, the MP did explain that Councillor Murray knew all about these issues. So I have booked in a meeting with Councillor Murray to try and understand what specific cases there are that we need to look into.
Yeah, but as I say, if it's one of our recommendations, it just reminds people that, just because they're on the social... And they may be stressed at the time. We don't know what's happening in there. So, it's a kid glove thing. Anybody, and Kim?
I've just put a couple. I put something around empowering the partnership to follow policy in regard to communicating with tenants before reducing the banding. So, as in, I know you can't make, but just, I suppose it's like you say, continually raising it and raising it and raising it, rather than it just being like an ad hoc, Because my impression when I've raised those cases in the past has been that the council has always sorted it out for that individual resident, but then nothing, it's never been the council that's done that, it's always been another housing association. So I don't know how you would empower them, but, just to keep it on the agenda.
It's keeping people informed. Because people's banding is changed and they didn't haven't known. And it will if you're reducing the bands. Then.
But they are, because we discussed that, didn't we? They are supposed to attempt to contact people before putting them down there.
I think a lot of the time it comes back to staffing capacity and pressures. If they've got hundreds of people who have not bid for a certain amount of time, they do doing that retrospective communication to say, we've dropped your banding, but if this is not the case, get in touch with us and putting the onus on the customer. So that's something that can be raised within the partnership. Whether it's deliverable or consistent, it will be another matter, but we can certainly keep it on the agenda.
Yeah.
The other one was, and again, I've not phrased particular words or anything, but I suppose, are there any I don't know whether repercussions is the right word, but if you sign a contract or you join a partnership or something and then different individuals are found to consistently not be adhering to that contract or policy, are there any repercussions? Like, you know, so if as a council you were identifying that places for people were consistently not doing something, and South Ribble was saying the same, and Preston was saying the same, as a partnership, could you then say, hang on a minute, we've all got a problem here, places for people aren't adhering to the policies?
As you said, it's not so much repercussions or sanctions. It's that's the whole reason of having an operational meeting group. So there's a representative on the operational level of all of the partners in Select Move, and then anything else that needs to be escalated from that comes to the steering group. So we would try and iron out those issues, and that's the point of the steering group. And it's also the reason that we brought in the Select Move coordinator post to address those types of issues. So it's not a case of, it's more carrot than stick, if you like. It's not a case of being able to sanction them, because it's a partnership. We have no leverage over them, but we try and eliminate those issues that way by coming together at steering group and thrashing them out that way, and then having this additional capacity across the 3 local authorities.
I suppose in principle, if the partners were agreed, we could ask another partner to leave the partnership because of the various things that they'd done. Hopefully that would never happen, and the actions that are taken to address would be put in place. But I suppose in principle we could ask them to leave the partnership, and then access to the allocations.
Okay,
I've got another one.
Go on.
Give some deals.
you're all right, crack on.
I've got, cross that one off my list. I've got another suggested recommendation that Select Move is not fit for purpose, with limited accountability and transparency over its policies. But we believe the only way we can improve this is to either pull out of Select Move or start building our own houses. Now, I know that's referenced in the conclusion that we weren't particularly happy with it, but that we didn't think we should pull out of it, but that we thought the only solution was to start building our own houses. But I mean, it's up to everybody, but I think to actually, because the issues why...
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and I've got the page where, when we spoke to Lindsay, his comments. He was uncertain if Select Move was fit for purpose, and proposed that until there was certainty that the partnership would do right by the residents of Chorley, that Chorley Council either pulled out of Select Move or started to build its own housing association to ensure the residents of Chorley are adequately served. He said it, and it actually came out in this residents' survey that they said it wasn't fit for purpose. And in some ways, I've been thinking that because of the issues we've had, and they're not getting resolved. So it's a common theme that we need to look at and say, is it?
I think the difficulty, from the survey results, I think the difficulty is what is the alternative, other than bringing the housing stock back into the ownership of the council, which I don't think is a possibility at all. What is the alternative to that?
It doesn't mean to say we can't explore that, and we could suggest that is explored. Right? It says, we need to explore that. Was open to the consideration of Chorley Council taking a larger role, encouraging a potential exploration into creating its own housing association within Select Move, with its own portfolio of affordable properties and renovated derelict properties for the benefit of residents of Chorley. That's in the conclusion. And perhaps I'd like that as a recommendation rather than being the conclusion, that we actually explore other alternatives. Because if we don't ever explore those alternatives, they're not going to appear. And Select Move, in the eyes of residents, councillors, MP, isn't working as it should. And it's just a way of looking at that and saying, is it? To explore other alternatives. Kim?
I think from backbench councillors within the controlling group, I think there is a growing momentum to start to say that the council should start to build its own properties again, not necessarily take all those houses that are already out there back under control, but to start to build up. And I know there's different views of that, and I think that whilst I get what you know, you can't really say it's rubbish, you know, because there's no alternative. But I think that is the alternative, to say, well, actually, we've come to the conclusion that we don't think it's fit for purpose.
Yeah.
Because of X, Y, and Z. That either we pull out or we actually start to do something such as
Explore. Yeah.
There'll
Because
be
we
now
are
or-
recommending to the Cabinet. That's the purpose of doing this. So they take that up if they think that's an idea, or they don't.
I
I mean,
there's different views in the cabinet.
Yeah, but it is there, and it's in our remit to actually say that, because we did one on the leisure contract. Oh no, it was the CCTV. We did a big one on CCTV provision. And we actually came up with 3 recommendations: low cost, middle cost, and flags and bells and everything, and left the Cabinet to choose. Those were our recommendations. It was one of those 3, and so that's what we're doing. So we can recommend that to the Cabinet. Doesn't mean say it'll happen, but we can do it. And yeah. Anybody else? Any comments? Sarah, and somebody had their hand up, and I couldn't remember who.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I do agree. I think we could potentially look at exploring it, and especially, and I'm sure in all our wards, we've all got derelict properties that have been vacant for long term. So it might be an idea if we did explore it, look at maybe bringing them back into the control.
So I would like it to go in as a recommendation, please. Is everybody in agreement with that? I see lots of nodding heads. So, anything else we want to add? Kim?
I've got a list.
Well, I had, don't worry. You come to the end of my list, you'll be glad to know.
2 points. I just wonder whether or not, again, just thinking about the cases that we've had over the last few years, whether or not there could, I've not got any suggested wording as such, but around perhaps empowering empowering the partnership to introduce targets around realistic expectations for timescales that residents can expect to receive responses within. Because, you know, like if you contact, I don't know, the county council, for example, you get a response back saying within 20 odd days, isn't it? So that is, you know, the bottom expectation.
Do you mean like an automatic response when they make a contact, or
either something that they're monitored by, or something? I think it would have to be something that they monitor themselves by, but also that they convey to residents. Yeah, I think both really, in terms of the improving communication, and perhaps that they audit themselves to say, you know, we replied to, like this whole thing from Jigsaw at the moment about responding to councillors within 5 days. You know, something like that. Whatever was realistic. Thanks.
I'd have to check, because they maybe do already, but it's about how visible that is. You know, how easy is that for customers to find? Where are they reporting that? So it's something we can check on.
I know they do on. I know they do on the repairs, and they have response rates on complaints and repairs. I'm not sure about flat move inquiries. I'm not sure. So something we can look into.
Something you can, yeah. Okay, go on.
And again, similar, because again, we've got totally different stories from one end of the spectrum to the other, about either conveying expectations or setting targets around how quickly applications can be processed. Because I know there's been issues like with staffing and stuff in the council, and there'll be the same in some of the other, in the housing associations. But I know I've had reports back that it's taken like a month from one individual. Others it's been dead quick. Or if there's been issues with their application, it can take, you know, they're only told 2 or 3 weeks later that you're not registered yet because we need to check this or check that. Whether or not there can be like a target to get it through the system.
A time frame type of thing, yeah.
Yeah, the target's always a bit of a movable feast, and having worked in several different local authorities, it will always depend on your staffing capacity. So sometimes you should be letting people know. So if you think it's going to take longer than anticipated, that should be communicated on an automatic email. For the most part, we try and manage that expectation in terms of when an application's made. They're told that if they don't provide the documents within 28 days, then the application will be closed. So sometimes people don't provide the documents. They'll then ring the 3 weeks later, say, why has it not been done yet? And we say, because you haven't provided your documents. And we aren't chasing that until, if they're not provided, it is closed. And the team themselves are targeted on processing applications where they can, where the documents have been provided within 28 days, but that is an internal target. It's not something that we do advertise because it's not anything that's ever been agreed as a public function. So it's something we can look at in terms of not so much having it as a set target for us or for the partnership. Others may be longer than us at the minute because we're quite on top of ours where we can be, or as much as we can be. Others are probably struggling with their own staffing capacity. But about the communication about that in terms of how long is the estimated time it's going to take for your application to be processed because you're in a queue, and what you should do to ensure it, promoting that. I think they do get a reminder after 14 days. I'm going to double check that that's not a previous authority that I worked in, that they get a reminder after 14 days that if you haven't provided your documents, please provide them, because without that we can't process it. But yeah, it's something that Lisa can pick up within the coordinator role.
Anything else from anybody?
Well,
Yeah.
some others. Oh.
Go on, I knew you would have.
I don't think we've not documented the feedback from that Hayley Hughes. So, she sent a document, didn't she, back in February, Public Services Referral Coordinator, and she made some comments. Housing Solutions team will support people sort of on a one-to-one level if they're at risk of homelessness, but not generally. So I just wondered, because that is something that the council can, should that be a recommendation to say that if somebody presents to the council, whether they're homeless or not, that support should be provided to talk them through that process. That's the first one.
Yeah, I think it's a hard one to answer because all of the other partners, they don't have homeless applicants coming to them as well. So the reason that an application might be expedited because somebody's homeless, and it would be the same within the partnership, they would refer into us if there's somebody says they're at risk or actually homeless. So we expedite applications where we're processing a homeless application because we hold that dual role at the moment until it's separated out with the new resource. A housing solutions officer currently would process the application alongside doing somebody's personal housing plan, issuing legal notifications. So they automatically, by that process, get expedited. There isn't capacity in the team to do that for everybody, so that you're doing their applications at the same time. What I would say is that it will be different when there's a dedicated resource. We're hoping that we can go out to advert for that full-time dedicated resource that's been agreed. And it doesn't mean that everybody will get face-to-face or support to do applications online if they're able to do it themselves or can get assistance elsewhere. But it should certainly speed up process times, and it should help us to keep on top of inquiries and contacts that are made. And we're already doing a much better job than we were of that because of the staff capacity. But that adds an extra dimension as well.
Yeah.
The other comment, which ties into what you said, Hayley had said that previous funding was provided from the council for customer services to support with this. So I'm guessing that would have been at the front desk if somebody had an appointment. And I know it's changed since COVID, but if somebody had an appointment and that they could sit down with somebody that wasn't necessarily from your team to talk them through it. And I just wonder, I know customer services are under pressure, but whether or not, because that is something that's within the council's
remit. We're talking with customer services about what sits in customer services, like a triage service for customers. But you're right, the capacity isn't there at the moment. And I know they're doing a lot of recruitment. So at the moment, they've said, look, let's do all the recruitment and then let's review what tasks that we do in the customer services aspect of it, and then what tasks can be done with the team to do like a triage. Because the way they deal with cases are different in Saffrable and Chorley. So they're looking to try, now it's part of a shared service, to try and find some consistency.
Yeah,
could we? So I get what you're saying that the resource isn't there at the moment. I know it's all up in the air with recruiting people, but could we add it as a recommendation to?
Well, it gives strength to your elbow when you
review,
come to that, doesn't it?
Review the role that customer services takes in regard to select move or housing related applications. Because that is within the council's gift.
No,
isn't it?
yes, it is. Yeah, it's something they can do. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Kim? Stop switching your microphone.
It also
off.
says, Haley's comments also said that Simon Charnock used to run Select Move sessions, but because he's now changed roles, that's no longer available. So again, I just wondered, because there is the whole, I mean, it was on the informal cabinet agenda the other night about the whole digital agenda and digital sessions and stuff, and that they were reviewing because different providers had dropped in and dropped out, whether or not that should actually be part of that, to say that as well as the basic digital training sessions, that there should be Select Move sessions incorporated into that. Thanks.
Yeah, it has been picked up, that one. So we've got 2 providers, so it's not Simon who's doing it, but it's somebody in the communities team. So that's been picked up.
Will that be promoted?
Yes, it should be.
Well, we could put that in as a recommendation to promote that. Would it be feasible to put that as a recommendation so that, you know, and it can be picked up?
Just to say, it's in practice at the moment already, because we have templates for some of the stuff that we send out to customers, and included in our personal housing template is signposting to the digital offer. So it is already up and running. I'll check with Lisa in terms of getting comms out about it and
that we don't know about, you see.
That was what I was going to say, because I've never heard about that. Even when Simon did the sessions, you know, I've heard about the basic digital stuff, but not the...
Yeah, so it would be kind of continue those sessions. And promote it, so that we all know.
The other 3 I had just from Haley's comments were, they were saying that they got a lot of forgotten password inquiries. So is that being incorporated into the whole civic, what it's called? Is that being incorporated into that?
Yeah, again, I hope I'm getting this right, but I'm pretty sure that we did discuss it in terms of the spec on the upgrade. People should be able to reset their own passwords. You know, the forget password request, which I didn't realise wasn't on there already, but yeah, it should be in there. I think there was a glitch in it in terms of if you had 2 separate applications using the same email address, there was a problem, but that is few and far between and something that could be dealt with by signposting back to staff at that point. But yeah, it should be included within the upgrade, as far as I'm aware.
2 more.
Yeah, you're all right. Keep going till you finish.
Additional needs. I think, again, that was flagged up. I think in the comments it said about people that might have chaotic lives or not have a phone or, you know, or have special needs or whatever. Whether or not, I mean, the impression that was given on that said that additional needs needed to be flagged as part of the process. Could that be a recommendation, or is that on somebody's record, or what? Thanks.
You mean if someone self-reports that they've got additional needs?
I think both in terms of that, but also preferred method. You know, somebody works shifts, or 7 days a week and might only be available between 9 and 1, or personal circumstances as well as self-reporting additional needs that they might have.
In terms of support for an application?
Well, it wasn't very clear because you could have read it 2 ways, but I suppose I think in the comments it was more about it was more about people with support needs, but also if people are hard to get hold of, they might struggle to get a phone charger, or they might not have a landline, or they might be moving house, or be in between properties and things like that. Is that noted as part of their...
It is even in the makeup of the form, because it will ask people for the methods of contact, whether do they have email, do they have access to a phone, have they got a care of address for post, have they got somebody else that they want us to contact on their behalf, so they give authorisation to that person. And within the rest of the form, it should also capture if somebody's saying that they've got issues, it would be captured, because we're asking them if they've got medical issues, we're asking them if they've got any other issues that we need to be aware of, because it comes into the banding and everything else. So it should be captured that way. Without seeing the wording from Hayley, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, so I apologise, I think it's more about the chaotic people, the people who've got multiple deprivation and that chaotic lifestyle, and hopefully that will be covered by what we're asking of, like Surely Help the Homeless. It'll also be covered outside of all this in terms of, we've got the Changing Futures initiative where we're trying to get people engaged with peer support navigators who can help handhold them and navigate them through all services, not just Select Move and homelessness, but all of the services. Obviously it's dependent on engagement with that. and meeting that criteria. But I think a lot of that has already been covered.
I get what you're saying, but I just wonder, because it must be an issue for Hayley's team for her to have fed it back, so there must be some issue in the system that it's not.
There must be some disconnect.
I don't know whether it's appropriate for a recommendation or not, but I don't know, maybe want to look into it and then add it if it's not already clear in. Because for her to have documented it, it must be an issue for a team.
Yeah, I think that will always be the case, where we can work better together, and us picking up support needs, and again, that's already very much on the agenda at the moment. And I think we will always have that frustration where people some of our customers may engage better with Hayley's service, community services than they do with housing. And we're trying to overcome those barriers by working with the voluntary sector and the whole VCFS, as well as social prescribers and other people within the council.
So perhaps that could be a recommendation that to strengthen those kind of links. And that's something we can do as well. That's something that we as the borough could do. So that be okay.
Yeah. The other one on the list from Hayley's document was about, and again, I don't know what the practicalities of it are, but around, she was saying they have a hell of a lot of ID issues where people are having to travel to Preston, and obviously they can't afford to go and get birth certificates, and some people, and scanning it in and then bringing it into the council and all that. Is there anything that could be, I don't know, and it's probably not within the gift of the council, but is there anything that could be refined as part of the process to improve that?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head other than those other support services. So obviously we don't expect the communities and social prescribers in particular to do that job all the time. So it's about looking at those gaps in any other commission services or what we can access through the voluntary sector, the faith sector, to help, because it is a barrier that we can't overcome in terms of eligibility and ID for services. It's certainly something we could put it as explore, because it's on the agenda, not just for Select Move. It would be the same for any statutory service.
Yeah, if we could put it as explore, because I think that'd be good, wouldn't it? That's it.
Okay, is that it? No. Anybody else? Anything? Just one comment on the 2014. It's on page 23. The 24 recommendations, 1 was no longer applicable, 2 were not being adhered to, and 11 were not are. But I think there were more than 2 in my mind that weren't being adhered to, as we've referred to before. So I think we might need to look at those figures. It might be better saying some, rather than putting a specific number to it.
I think what I'd done was, where I'd been able to identify that actions had been taken even if it had not been resolved, I'd kind of rag status the recommendations, and that's where those numbers came from. I can go through that with Matthew, and if you feel it's better to write some.
There were a few that we flagged up that there's the same as last time, so...
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Even though I didn't explain myself well. If that's... Anybody else, any more comment? James? I'll let him have a go, Kim, before you come back.
No, thanks. I'll be a bit quick, because it's just to sort of tie together the conclusion, just follows on from what you said. The paragraph that follows that, I thought it was quite good in terms of the financial limit, because it now supports the recommendation that we've agreed, which is not to reduce the threshold, whereas previously the reading would have conflicted with that. But another thing that's come out for me over the process of the task group is that there's a few common themes. I was wondering if we could sort of summarise those. And for me, those themes are transparency, which is related to the communication and how easy the system is to navigate. The other is accountability. Looking at capacity, it's related to capacity. Who do we contact if there's an issue with an application? We can't find usually a designated officer who's having to deal with a particular application. I mean, you might say one housing officer is dealing with 30 applications at a time, and therefore that one will see it from start to end. And I think this was the confusion I had with the Select Move coordinator role, that you know, who can we contact, who can the applicants contact to chase that up. So that's the accountability aspect. And of course the third one is the capacity, where, you know, as we've said, it suggests, the report suggesting that we're being able to address backlogs. That's fine, because if we're building capacity into the system. But there's still a lot more work to do on capacity, not just in our housing department, but clearly across the board, and this has to be approached holistically. So, you know, if we can look at those three themes and potentially say, you know, that's come out from this. And then obviously, as we discussed earlier, Chair, the paragraph following that, this task group is not recommending ending Chorley Council's involvement with the service. Well, we know that's not the case. Actually, what the group is saying is we're recommending exploring all options, including the improvements we've set out.
To improve the service, yeah, for a resident.
Also, you know, recommending that the council could look at pulling out of the service altogether. So that would need changing.
Yeah.
Paragraph further down from that, it understands that since 2014, advancements in technology climate resulted in increased reliance on ICT rather than of. That was just a little, and I think before you could remove the comma after the ICT just to flow better.
He's doing it now. I've got him doing the grammar now.
But yeah, everything else, that's fine. Chair.
Okay. I've got a Sina and then Kim. I'll let Sina have a go, Kim. Is that all right?
All these recommendations are wish lists, but I'm going to put a time scale on any of these.
But I mean, we have recommended a further Select Move task group or scrutiny investigation be conducted. So then that would come back to that, wouldn't it? Even though I had to fight for this one.
And there'll be the monitoring reports as
yeah,
well.
and there'd be monitoring reports as
Can I
well.
say something additional?
Yeah.
Staying away from this is that in terms of accessing the housing department by telephone, it's absolutely appalling. I'm not joking. I had that many phone calls. In the end, I tried myself because the same lady kept coming back to me. I just keep trying. I tried. It just goes dead after a while. Yeah. So I rang 5151 when I got through to Rachel. They put me through, yeah. But obviously Joe probably doesn't know and asked to put through to Rachel, but I did. But this lady, then again, going back to previous point you make about people being told that they're going to be moved down a band. This lady had gone from B to an E, not being told. She's come out of a hospital from mental health, 9 months there. She was picking herself up when Cara read this on her, her Select Move profile and told her that way. She absolutely went mad. She's so downhill in terms of mental health. I think she ended up in hospital. It was so serious. I think people should be told by email letter, this is the reason why we're doing this. Not to put a reason on, just put a band down by 3. It's not the right way of approaching people. Yeah, that's one of them. But the phone thing, that needs to be resolved, because at one time there used to be an answering machine. It was always full and had to be picked up. But now there's no answering machine either. How is somebody supposed to get through? It's so frustrating for us to get through on the 51 number at the best times, and then to get through to a department that doesn't even have an answering machine. And then, on another occasion, somebody picks it up because it was diverted, and I'm talking to this person and she's saying, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about housing, I'm in the civics team. And I thought...
Yeah, you do get diverted to some strange places. That's another issue, yeah.
Honestly, I don't know where it ends up. Those experiences about that, how you probably feel.
And we share that frustration, I'm sure you're aware. It's something that I know I bang on about the service review that we're undertaking at the moment with the external consultant. And the first mini report that she's provided includes that as well, in terms of customer frustrations about there being no direct front door to our team, or direct dials for us or mobiles for us. So that is already one of the recommendations. But it was always something anyway that I'd picked up. And in the new IT rollout, I've asked for all my staff to have mobiles to be able to be directly contactable by customers. That's on the homeless side, to be fair. It's not as relevant for Select Move inquiries. But that is definitely a frustration. We share the IT problems and the telephony problems with getting through to our team. And what I would say is that when callbacks are put on for us, we are trying to get back to them, and most of the time we are on same day, and the inbox is same day. I know that doesn't help when people are in crisis and it's a really emotive subject anyway, it is already in hand with us. We are trying to address that so that people can get
It's
through
something
directly
we could
to
take
us.
up at member support working group.
Yeah,
I
so
think.
the IT rollout is being done as we speak.
Oh,
So they're looking at iPads, iPhones and laptops for all officers who hybrid work, which is the housing officers. So they should be getting them over the next month.
But it is something that comes up at member support working. We usually get an IT report, so it can be flagged up there. Oh, it is. Oh, I've ended up with some very strange people. I'm trying to get hold of somebody in IT and I'm talking to somebody in it. So anyway, back to this. Kim?
Just last 3 points. The select move survey findings. I know it was the view of the officer, but I don't think it's the view of the task group. I just wonder whether or not we should take out that the results should be interpreted with caution. I know professionally that was his view, but I don't think that was the view of the task group. Also, the view of the MP, I think it's been touched on slightly, but I think the view of the MP might go mad if he reads the MP was uncertain if select move was fit for purpose.
I don't think he's uncertain.
And that might need editing. And then the last one, just coming back to Sina's points about timescales, I think what it says about a further task group, it says within the same time frame. I just wonder, is it not just going to fall off the to-do list because that's 8 years?
It should come back to ONS though, shouldn't it? It's monitored 3 times, yeah.
No, that won't
groups,
cover.
No, it won't cover the
that'll be
stuff.
what,
But
18 months, 2 years, the monitoring reports. But then it's 2014, the last one. It's like a different decade.
Yeah.
And the world's moved on since 2014, hasn't it? I just wonder whether something more like, if it's going to be monitored through scrutiny for the next 2 years, or I don't know how Matthew might know how frequently
It's pretty much every 6 months.
Yeah.
So that would be 6, 12, 18 months.
Yeah. After that. Yeah.
So maybe after 2 years, or I don't know, or
I think so.
3 years plus.
It could be made at the meeting of the third monitoring report, because by that time it was about 18 months, 2 years.
But that could be a recommendation that it's looked at in 2 years to see how it's faring or not, as the case may be.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Can I just mention about the data? I think we need to put that caution in there because the response rate was so low. And I think that's what he was trying to say. When you do any sort of, I suppose, quantitative data, they always put cautions in, don't they, when the response rate is that low. And that's why they recommended it, and that's why it's in the report. I know he's not here to explain it, but that's my understanding, because if the response rate is not representative of the people who we surveyed, because it was 4.2% is what he's saying, so we need to put caution. Not to say the results are invalid, but that's why he's added it.
Well, I mean, it backed up everything that we thought and why we started the task group in the first place, reading it. So that told me something, even though it was such a smaller number. James?
Yeah, Chair, thanks, Chair. I think if we're going to move forward on that, I would argue that we found as a task group that the results were highly enriching, and they backed up the experiences we were having as members with constituents. What we'd look for is for all parties involved to try and increase that response rate in the future, because it could be argued that the survey wasn't published widely enough, that there wasn't enough time. There was other surveys ongoing at the same time. So, of course, we're putting a survey out knowing full well a lot of these people struggle to access things on a regular basis. So, I think the feeling of this group was that we were grateful for the over 100 responses we did get. And actually, we'd recommend that if we're putting out those sort of satisfaction surveys in the future, that the officers responsible for those surveys actually undertake measures to try and increase that response rate, rather than just putting the survey out and waiting until it's the deadline and then suddenly we get 4.2%.
it did get delayed. I mean, I thought we'd already sent the thing out and we'd be getting answers, and we didn't, so it was done in a hurry. So we could have got a higher response rate, perhaps, if it had been in that. I don't
still
know.
would have gone out for the same amount of time. It still would have gone out for a month.
But the other argument is perhaps when people have gone through select moves, the people should be sending out a survey then, how you define this. And they've got that data there straight away.
Well, I think that comes back to that recommendation already about the annual survey to select move users.
But they could get it at the time, and they're more likely to fill it in at the time because, yeah, it went or it didn't, you know, rather than think back. I don't know, just a thought. Anyway, anything else? No? If not, I think we've got to the end of it. I think. So, thank you, everybody. No doubt Matthew will send us a final copy and that we can go through, hopefully not with my pink pen this time. And thank everybody for their hard work with it. It's been a long process, but we've got there at the end. So thank you all, everybody.